So good evening all of you. So in day 13 we are going to discuss about arrays. So whereas now it is day 14. So in day 14 we are going to discuss about strings and storage classes. So in day 13 we are discuss about different types of arrays, and now it is day 14. So we are going to discuss about strings and storage classes in this session. So let us start the class. So first of all, what is a string? So what is a string? So it is a group of characters. So a string is a group of characters, is called as a string. So the group of characters can be called as a string, and these group of characters, after end of these group of characters, so it will go to store null character, which will go to store null characters. So in day 13 we are going to discuss about difference between integer array and character array. So in integer array, the elements does not ended with the null characters. So whereas in character array, so after storing the characters in the memory, so for end of the character, so that will be filled with the null characters. So that is the difference between integer array and character array. So here a group of characters can be stored in a array. Okay, these character array are called as a strings, or simply a group of characters is called as a string. And here the group of characters can be ended with the null characters. So the group of characters, or to recognize a character array, should end with a null characters. So whereas integer array does not end with the null characters. So for example, so here I am taking an example is a student. So student is a group of characters. So whenever I am going to store this student in memory, so it will go and store character by characters, like S, T, U, D, E, N and T, and ended with the null characters. So here, if you want to say that the what is the length of string here? So what is the length of the given string? So the length of the given string will be number of characters. So excluding the null characters. So you don't take the null characters. So then we can say that here the length of the characters will be 7 characters. So that means that the length of a string is the number of characters. So that means that it excluding null characters. So but to store a string, but you can store a character array, we need one more location or one more extra memory space for storing the null character. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So I am taking a group of characters is a student. So whenever I am going to store this group of characters in the memory location, so each and every character will be stored into the memory like this. So after that, which will go to store, or after that it will go and end with the null characters. So if it is a character array, it should be end with a null character. So if it is an integer array, it has not ended with the null characters. So for storing of null character, you need to require extra memory. You need to require extra memory space. For example, if you are not using, if you are not provide sufficient memory for storing of a null character, then it will go and give some garbage value. So after printing of a student, then after that it will going to produce some garbage value. Why? Because you are not going to allocate the extra memory space for null characters. So that's why you need to, if you are using a character array, then you need to specify extra memory for storing of a null characters. So here I'm using 7 characters. I'm using student is a 7 characters, but for storing of a null character, then I will going to use my character array will be 8 characters. So that means the size of the array will be 8 characters. So up to 7, which will go and store the characters, and for last 8th character, which will go to store null value. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So here, while taking a length of a given string, so then you need to take only characters. You don't take null characters. So simply you can exclude the null character while count the number of characters in the array. So but for storing of null characters, you need to specify extra memory for storing of a null characters. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So if it is integer array, you are not going to store any null characters. So whereas if you are using a character array, then you need to specify extra space for storing a null character. So that is about strings. Now coming into declaration of strings. So how to declare the strings? So it is a syntax for declaring of a string. So char, it is a data type and followed by variable name and followed by size of the characters. So that means we have to enter the size of the characters. So whereas in integer array, you have to take int followed by array name and followed by size. So the difference is that if it is a character array, it will be ended with a null character. So if it is an integer array, it has not ended with the null characters. And now coming to example here, char, it is a data type and followed by variable name. So the variable name is name and followed by size. So the variable name is name and followed by size. So here 10 indicates that the name. So that means the name contain only 10 characters. So that means up to 9 characters you have to use a name. For a last character you should use for null characters. For storing of null character you can assign last value. So and similarly if you want to read the character name from the keyboard or characters from the keyboard, you can use a scanner function. So with the help of a scanner function, you can read the string, or with the help of a gets function, you can read the entire string. So gets and scanf is a input functions for reading of a character arrays. So here, while you are going to observe that here in this strings, so I'm going to use a scanf function and followed by formatter string will be %s and followed by name here. So actually, while reading of any value or while reading of values, we are using in the previous ampersand symbol. While reading by using a scanf function, I'm going to use ampersand followed by variable name and so on. So but while reading of characters, I'm not going to use a ampersand operator. So why? Because in a character array by itself indicates the starting address of the array. So in character array by itself indicates the starting address of the array. So that's why you don't use ampersand before the variable name while reading the strings. So while reading the strings, you don't use a ampersand symbol in scanf function. So why? Because the character array by itself indicates the starting address of the array. So that's why you don't use ampersand before the variable name while reading of the strings. So that is one of the point you have to keep in mind. So if it is an integer array or if it is a float or if it is some other data type, then you should use ampersand. If you are using a scanf function, then definitely you have to use ampersand. So whereas for reading of a strings, you don't use ampersand symbol. Why? Because the character array by itself indicates the starting address of the array. So that's why you don't use ampersand before the variable name while reading the strings. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. And if you have any queries, so please post into the chat box. So next one is initialization of strings. So how we are going to initialize the strings, and this is a syntax for initializing of a strings. So storage type, data type, and followed by array name is equal to size. So here the syntax of initializing of a string, initialization of declaration of a string, or declaration of array, which will be common. So it will be common. So if it is an integer data type, then it will go and accept the elements like 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. If it is a character data type, then it will go and accept the letters. So that is only the difference here. So here I am going to write here initialization character. So it is a data type followed by array name and followed by size is equal to list of characters. So the list of characters can be write in between single quotes or in between double quotes. So the list of characters can be write in between single quotes, or it can be write in between double quotes. So for example, char name followed by 25. So that means the number of characters in the name will be up to 25 characters. So that is equal to followed by characters. So if you want to use the characters, then you have to write in a single quotes. Here I am writing R-A-V-I, Ravi. And also every character will be terminated by comma. So every character will be separated by comma operator. And also after writing of a character, now we can store the null character. So why? Because it is a character array, so that's why you need to store null character. So similarly I am going to declare one more initialization, char name followed by empty size is equal to followed by Ravi, and it will be ended with the null characters. So here I am not going to mention the size of the name. So that's why how many characters are you are going to use at the time of execution of the program, then which will go and store that number of characters in the place of empty array. So next one, char name followed by 25 is equal to Ravi. So you can write entire group of characters in a double quotes. So if you are writing a group of characters in double quotes, so it is called as a string. Similarly, I am going to write char name followed by empty size is equal to Ravi. So that means how many characters are I used here. So that will be allocated automatically. So but you have to keep it in mind. So for every character array, it should be ended with the null characters. So that means that you can store extra memory for storing of a null characters. So otherwise it will go and print a garbage value. So this is example. So to display the output when the count of null characters is not considered. So here I am writing, I am going to declare the here I am using a character data type and followed by name and followed by 6. So the number of characters in the name will be 6 is equal to welcome. So welcome. So but here I am not going to specify the null character. So including that null character, you have to mention the size of the name will be 7. But you are given size of the name will be only 6. So that means that you are not going to provide sufficient extra memory space for storing of a null character. So if you are trying to print the, if you are trying to print print the name, if you are trying to print the name, then it will going to give welcome and followed by some garbage characters. So why? Because for storing of null character, you are not going to mention the extra space, extra byte. So that's why it will, while printing of name, it will going to print welcome and followed by some garbage characters which will going to printing on the screen. So let us execute this code in online. So you don't use cynavo.h and you don't use get switch in online compiler. Then let us execute this code. So see here, it will be display welcome. So but it is not displaying but it is not displaying uh, garbage value. So whereas in if I try to display, if I try to run this program in our Turbo C++ or Turbo C, definitely it will going to print uh, after printing this welcome, and at end it will go and print some garbage characters. So that's why while writing of these characters, you need to specify extra byte for storing of a null characters. So next one is reading. So how to read these strings? So there are three ways to read these strings. That is by using a scanf function, or by using a gets function, or by using a loops, by using a for loop, while loop, and a do while. So with the help of a scanf function, you can read the strings, or with the help of a gets function, you can read the strings, or with the help of a loop control statements, you can read the characters. So let us see. First one is by using scanf function. So scanf function is a input function. So for reading of strings, you should use a conversion symbol or formatted symbol will be %s. So for example, scanf %s comma name. So while reading of strings, you don't use uh, ampersand before the variable name. So that is a point you have to keep in mind. So second one, now coming to what are the advantages of using scanf function. So the advantage of using scanf function is that it can be used to read more than one string at a time. So with help of a scanf function, you can read more than one string at a time. So for example, I want to read a name, designation, and address of the employee. So then I will go to use a scanf %s, and %s comma name comma designation comma address. So like that, you can read any number of strings in scanf function. So but coming to disadvantages of using scanf function is that, so while entering the characters, or while entering the strings at the time of giving input to the program, it encounter a blank space. Like if we give any space between the character while reading of a strings, then it will go to terminate automatically. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So if you want to enter strings, string is nothing but group of characters. So that means you need to type, for example, you need to type welcome. So if you provide any space between W space, E space, and so on, so at that time, so the scanf function will be terminated automatically. So that means that blank spaces, it cannot be accepted while reading of a entire string. So now coming to gets function. So the gets function which will going to overcome the disadvantages of the scanf function. So here it can read a string of any length. So it will be read string of any length with any number of blank spaces and tabs. So whereas in scanf function, if you provide any blank space, then it will go to terminate it. So whereas in gets function, that will be what are the disadvantages of scanf function. So by the gets function, which will go to overcome that disadvantages. So that means that in gets function, you can use any number of blank spaces and any number of tab spaces. But here it will be terminated only when pressing enter button. So whenever you can press enter button, then only the gets function will be terminated. Otherwise it cannot be terminated. So even though you can provide space between the characters, which will be also accepted, but once you can press enter button, then the gets function will be terminated. So that is the difference between scanf function and gets function. So this is an example here, gets followed by name. So if you want to read only one name at a time. So if you want to read another name, then again you have to use the gets followed by name. So whereas in scanf function, you can read any number of strings at a time. So that is the advantages. So but whereas in gets function, you have to read only one string at a time. So if you want to read another string, then again you need to write gets followed by name 1. So like that, how many strings you want required, then you have to use gets followed by name, gets followed by designation, gets followed by address. You have to write a number of gets for reading of a multi strings. So whereas in scanf function, within a single statement you can read more than one string at a time. So whereas in gets function, it will be accepted only one string at a time. But here the advantage will be, you can provide any number of blank spaces or you can provide any number of tab spaces, it will be accepted, but it will be terminated only when press enter button. So now coming to disadvantages of using gets function. So just I said that with help of a gets function, you can read only a single string at a time. If you want to read another string, then again you need to write gets followed by name 1 or gets followed by name 2 and so on. So that is a drawback of using gets function. So this drawback which will go to overcome by the scanf function. So the scanf function will be read multi strings at a time, but the gets function will be read only one string at a time. So that is the difference between scanf function and gets function. So these are the two functions for reading of a strings. And the last one is by using a loop control statements. So if you want to read character by character, at that time only you have to use conversion symbol will be %C. So C for character, and at the time you have to write ampersand followed by name of I. So name of I. So here I am using a for loop. So for I is equal to 0, I not equal to null character. Why? Because every string must be ended with a null character. So that's why I am writing here condition I not equal to null characters. So the I value will be going to incremented up to the I value cannot be reached to the null character. So whenever the I value will be reached to the null character, then only it will going to terminate. Otherwise it cannot be terminate. So and similarly, so here I am using a scanf function %C. So C for character. So if you want to read character by character like W, E, L, C, O, M, E, welcome. If you want to read character by character, then only you have to use ampersand symbol. Ampersand symbol followed by variable name and followed by I. So otherwise you don't use ampersand symbol for while reading of a strings. So if you want to read character by character, then only you have to use %C. If you want to read a group of characters, at that time you have to use a personal S, and without using any formatted ampersand symbol. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. If it is a group of string, then it's not required to mention the address operator, but conversion symbol will be personal S. So if it is a character by character, if you want to read character by character, then you have to use personal C and followed by address operator. Sorry, ampersand operator. So that is a point you have to remember. So that is about reading. So reading of strings. So now writing. So that means how to display these strings. So by using a puts function. So here puts is a output function. So we are already discussed about different types of input or output formatted and unformatted functions. So scanf function, gets function will comes for in reading of a strings, whereas puts function will be used for displaying or writing strings on your console. So that is about strings. So now let us see the string predefined library functions. So what are the predefined library functions will be comes under, and what types of operations can be done on a strings. So first one is a string upper. So strupr. So it will be stands for string upper. So that means that which will converted. So which will convert alphabets in a string to uppercase. So that means if I suppose I am providing a string will be srist, then it will convert it into uppercase. And if it is a string lower, so if it is a string lower function, you have to enter the uppercase letter, so that will be converted into lowercase letter. So next one is a string length. So if you want to find out the length of a given string, then you have to use strlen function. Then it will go and find out the number of characters in a given string. And next one is a string reverse. So if you want to reverse the given string, then you have to use strrev and followed by string name. Then it will go and convert the reverse string. So next one is a string copy. So if you want copy from one string into another string, then you need to use a string copy function. So next one, string comparison. So if you want to compare two strings, whether the two strings are equal or not, at the time you have to use a string comparison. So here if it is equal, it will go on to print equal or 0, otherwise it will go on print 1. So next one, string cat. That means that string concatenation. So if you want to joining two strings, then you have to use a string concatenation function. For example, I want join student comma stu comma dent. So then I got the concatenated string will be student. So these are the different types of string. Different types of operations can be done on strings, and all these operations can be if you want to use all these methods or functions in our current running of the program, you should include your string.h header file. So under string.h header file, so these all methods or functions will be available. If you want to use these functions in our program, then you should use a header file as include string.h header file in our current running of the program. Otherwise, the string methods or string functions cannot be identified. So that's why if you are writing any program on strings, you need to write a first step is hash include string.h header file. Then only it will go and accept the all these functions. Otherwise, it cannot be accepted. So that is about different types of string predefined. So these all will be a built-in functions or predefined string functions. So I will go and explain one by one program. in the next session. So I will go and explain how we'll go and write the programs on free defined library functions. So I will going to explain every program. After that, after completion of these string predefined library functions or operations, so I will go on to I'm going to also explain about user defined functions. So what is a user defined function and what is a predefined function or built-in functions? So the difference is that in built-in function, just you can include that function in our program. So it is not possible to do any changes on that function. Just you can include that file, that function in our program. So whereas in a user defined function, so here the name itself indicates that it is a user. So that's why according to user requirements, they will go and develop their own function for performing string operations. Like for performing string operations, you don't use predefined library functions. So without using predefined built-in functions or predefined library functions, we are going to develop our own methodology. So that will be comes under user-defined functions. So if we use a built-in function or predefined function, that will be comes under predefined function or built-in functions. So that is the only difference between a user-defined function and built-in functions. So in the next class, I will go and explain different types of programs on string len and string reverse, string copy, string comparison, string concatenation, and string lower and string upper. So after that, I will go and explain about user defined function. I will going to find out the length of a given string, and I will going to copy without using a strcpy function. I will go and perform copy operation. I will go and explain in the next session. So that's all about today class, and if you have any queries, so please post in the chat box. I will try to answer the queries. So this is a time for clarifying your doubts. If you have any doubts, so please post in the chat box. So if you want access chat box, the chat box will be only for subscribers only. So if you like my if you subscribe my channel, so then only we'll going to post your query in the chat box. Otherwise you are not going to able to use that chat box in the YouTube session. So if you are not subscribed my channel, please subscribe, and you can post your query in the chat box. So only subscribers, the chat box will be enabled, and other people it's not, you are not going to post any queries in the chat box. So that's why I requested everyone, please subscribe my channel so that you can use the chat box. So that's all about today's session, and if you have any doubts, you can please ask me. So if you like video, or if you like in today class, so please give a yes button, and also can like this video. So can click on a thumbs up button if you like this video. So if you have any doubts, please post your queries in the chat box. And if you don't have any doubts, so that's all about today's session, and we will go and meet in the day 15 class. So thank you. So thank you for participating.